Okay, so my name is Molly and I am the community ranger for a project called Reclaiming Reds. So as mentioned, I'm going to talk about setting up this project because it is brand new and we've only been running for 15 months now. And as I'm sure all of you are aware, that was during a global pandemic. So just a little bit about the project as a whole. So we are based at Knowsley Safari, so up in the northwest in the Liverpool region. And the aim of the project is to kind of pave the way for red squirrels to return to that area. So I'm afraid we actually don't have any red squirrels at the moment, but we're hoping to change that. So we are funded by the National Lottery. And at the moment, we are funded for 2 years. So we've just had our first year of funding and we're going into our second year now. So this is what our kind of the structure of the project looks like. But I did mention that we are part of Knowsley Safari. So Knowsley Safari has just gone under kind of a bit of a structural change. So we now have something called the Knowsley Safari Foundation. So our Research and Conservation Department and our Education Department now sit under the Knowsley Safari Foundation. And you will hear from a couple of members of the Education Department tomorrow. So in terms of the actual project, there are 2 members of staff. There is myself and our control ranger. But we do also have a grand total of 4 people that work for the project, if you include our research and conservation manager and our research and conservation officer as well. So they oversee the project as a whole. So as I mentioned, I am the community ranger. So I deal with all of the community side of that project. So I do all of the education and the workshops. I also manage the volunteer program and do all of the social media and the website. And then we have our control ranger who works predominantly on the Knowsley estate. So she helps reduce those numbers of grey squirrels and helps with the training of volunteers as well. And then as you can see, we have got our volunteer program. So it's a 3-stranded volunteer program where we've got control volunteers, we have volunteers doing research and admin for us, and community volunteers that help me out with all of the community stuff. And then kind of a branch of the volunteer program is our community trap loan scheme. So that is kind of less time commitment for people that still want to help get involved, but it helps us get into those communities and those areas where we don't have land permission. So this is what our project area looks like. So for those of you that aren't familiar with kind of the northwest Liverpool region, so down here we've got what we call the walled estate. So that is literally the estate that has walls around it. So that is where our control ranger works. And we've also got other members of the safari staff and the estate staff that work on there as well. And then we've got what we call the wider estate. So the estate is owned by a man called Lord Derby. And he doesn't just own that walled estate, he owns a lot of the land around this area as well. So that dotted line goes all the way up to sort of Ormskirk area, if you are familiar with this area. And then over on the left-hand side, we have got Formby. So Formby is the nearest population of red squirrels that we have. It's run by the Lancashire Wildlife Trust over there, just along the Sefton coast. And that is kind of the area that we're trying to link up with. So if you have a look at the map, you'll be able to see that the darker or the brighter red the dot is, the more recent the red squirrel sighting. So historically, we used to have a lot of migration between 2 strongholds. So the estate used to be a stronghold for red squirrels, as well as Formby. But now, unfortunately, we don't have that anymore. So that population of red squirrels has completely declined to the point where it's pretty safe to say they are locally extinct in our area. So the last verified sighting we had of a red squirrel on our estate was in 2016. We did have more of an anecdotal sight of a red squirrel in 2017, but we didn't get photographic evidence of that. So we kind of say around about 2016 was the last kind of proper sighting that we had of them. So it wasn't that long ago that we had red squirrels. So it's a good, a good reason for us to be doing this project right now. You know, ideally we would have been starting this project when we actually had red squirrels, but as is conservation, you kind of have to wait until it is pretty much locally extinct before you can get these projects up and running. So hopefully we can reverse that trend and bring them back. So here is the timeline of our project. So as I mentioned, we've been running for about 15 months now. So I was employed in September 2020, but actually that was already a 6-month delay in when we wanted to start the project. So they actually planned on getting the first lot of staff in and launching that project in March, but we all know what happened in March, and that didn't happen at all. So it was delayed for about 6 months before I was then in place. But during that time, we were still, in a really difficult time. In November, we went into our second lockdown. So I hadn't really been in the role for very long before we had more social restrictions in place. So it gave us a little bit of time. And then in January, the 4th of January is when we decided to officially launch our project. We were very, very excited. We're like, yes, we can finally maybe start getting out into the communities and start communicating this project. And then 2 days later, we went into our third lockdown. So you can see the little face palm emoji I put on there. That's very much how we were feeling, very excited. And then, oh, great. So we're going into another lockdown, not quite sure what's going to happen. But we powered through and we decided, we're going to have to just keep doing this. We are funded by the National Lottery. We do have a deadline. We are funded for these 2 years and we have to get some stuff going. So we were able to launch our volunteer program in March. And around about that time is when the schools reopened. And then we were able to do our first school visit in May, and it was really nice because they let us go into the school. So I have done a couple of virtual sessions with schools, but actually for the most part, I've been able to go into the schools and do face-to-face educating, which is obviously been mentioned before, is much, much better than doing it online. And then a little bit later in the year, so more recently, we've had our community volunteers start and we've had our first event start as well. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I'm just going to talk about the struggles we've had through the launch of this project. Just generally, general setbacks have been really difficult. So furlough was really, really difficult because, as I mentioned before, we are a very small team. So there's just me and our control ranger who work directly for the project. Because we are funded by the National Lottery, our jobs are funded by them as well. We weren't able to be furloughed, so we had to work through the whole time, which was great for us. But it did mean that all of the other people that are supporting our project at the safari were furloughed. So for a lot of the time, I just kind of was either working from home or going into the office and just feeling like, oh, I'm completely by myself and I have no support from anybody else because they physically can't work. So that was quite difficult. And then kind of holdups with content completion, risk assessments and things like that. So obviously I was writing all of the risk assessments and policies, but I needed to get them signed off by people at the safari. And again, with them being furloughed, I couldn't do that. And also just people have their own priorities as well. So our marketing department supports us a lot with helping with creating things and doing a lot of our advertising. And they were furloughed, but then also have their own projects that they need to work on. And unfortunately, as much as we would like squirrels to be top priority for every single person in the safari, it's not. They do have other things to be doing as well. And then our volunteer program. So actually, we had a lot of interest in our volunteer program even before I started. So initially, when those job roles went out in March, we had people sign up to the volunteer program saying, well, I don't want the job, but I'd be really interested in volunteering for your program, which was wonderful. But then obviously the pandemic happened, that all happened, went into a massive lockdown. So by the time I started the job in September, people were emailing saying, oh, when are you going to start your volunteer program? And we're saying, well, we haven't even started the project yet. And as time went on and I was trying to set up this volunteer program, unfortunately, people did drop off that list because it had been sort of 6-7 months since they registered their interest. And people start losing interest once if you don't kind of strike while the iron's hot. So that was very difficult because we thought we were going to have a lot of people initially, but we still have done very well with our volunteer program. And again, we could induct them, so we could say to them, feel free to come to the safari, we can induct you, but actually a lot of the stuff you're going to be doing, we can't do because of these social restrictions. We can't get you out into the communities because of the restrictions that are in place. It took us 12 months to get community volunteers in place. So if you saw that timeline before, I didn't really mention it, but we've only just been able to get community volunteers doing things for us because most of the stuff I've been doing is online. So that support by having volunteers come in and talking to people hasn't really been needed. So hopefully in the next year, we'll have more community volunteers doing lots of things for us. And then online barriers. The demographic of our volunteers tends to be a lot of retired people who just inherently don't want to be engaging online. They want to be coming in and talking to you face to face. So a lot of the things that I was trying to do was move our volunteer program online, but actually that was a real barrier for some people as well, and they didn't want to do that. I mean, I don't need to talk about this. We are all educators. A lot of us are zoo educators, so we understand exactly what happened here. The schools were closed and the zoos and safari parks were closed. So doing any kind of education was just non-existent. So that was obviously a big barrier. For me, being the community ranger, my job is to engage with the community, and they just weren't there to be able to engage with. And then digital dilemmas. So as I mentioned, we launched the project and then went into our third lockdown. And that meant that we had to do everything online. So the first talk that I did, a few of you may have kind of tuned into that and seen it. The first talk I did, we streamed it through our own Facebook page. So we did it on like a Facebook Live type thing, and through the Safari's Facebook page as well. And we got a massive influx of negativity towards our project. So it is a controversial project. We do have to do, culling of an invasive mammal as part of the project, and it just didn't sit well with a lot of people. And that was purely because we had to stream it online, and you can't kind of gauge your audience when you do it that way. We kind of gained kind of international recognition of the project because it just got shared into lots and lots of different groups on Facebook, and we had a massive influx of people kind of giving us a lot of online abuse about it, and that was really difficult. That was really difficult to deal with in the first instance, especially when you've been doing so much behind the scenes to get this all set up and you're quite excited about the project. To then be hit with that much negativity in the first place was really, really difficult to deal with. I will just kind of note on that now, since restrictions have been lifted, people have gone back to work, and things are a little bit better now, that negativity has massively dropped off. So we are still receiving kind of what we would say normal levels of negativity that red squirrel conservation projects get, but nowhere near what we had in the first instance. And then also just, it's very difficult to gain a following when you do something completely online and it's completely organic. And I think because of that negativity in the first place, it's been, not that we wanted to distance ourselves from the safari because we are part of the safari, but because we streamed it through the safari in the first place, we haven't done that again. So trying to gain just a following of people has been quite difficult. Okay, so that is just all of the negativity out of the way. And I will now talk about all of the great things that have happened in the past 15 months, because it hasn't just all been negative, it has been really, really wonderful as well. So I'm just going to now brag a little bit about the volunteer programme, because it has been wonderful. We have 27 volunteers that have signed up to our volunteer programme, which isn't a great deal of people, but when you consider that really there's been kind of 9 months of social restrictions, 3 months of lockdowns, that has been really, really great to have that many people come and try and support our project. So mainly we've got a lot of control volunteers, because we are kind of in an area where there are people doing that anyway with the Lancashire Wildlife Trust. We've got a little bit of overlap with our volunteer programmes. But then we've got a lot of people doing research and admin for us. So a lot of the people doing research and admin are students. So I've kind of set that up in a way that they can do it virtually if they want to. And so we have people that aren't even part of the local area that are volunteering for our programme, which is really great. And then the students are able to get kind of that experience of doing camera trap data and learning all of the surveying skills that they will need for their future careers. And then we haven't got as many community volunteers, which I suppose is kind of a good thing at the moment because we haven't got a lot of community stuff for them to do. But just recently we have had one of our volunteers coming out to schools with us, and she's been really great and really enjoying that. And so in total, they have committed 2,200 hours to our project, which is just incredible. Now, I will just say that that isn't represented properly on these graphs because a lot of that is on-call hours. So our control volunteers that help with the community trap loan scheme, they will dedicate a certain number of hours a week just to be on call. So if they do get that phone call, then we can send them out to various households to help with that. But if I was to plot the on-call hours, you wouldn't be able to see the rest of the data because it would be so skewed. Okay, and then a little bit more about our research and administration volunteers. And so, as I said, a lot of these are volunteering virtually. So they're kind of logging on and doing camera trap data for us, or data inputs, or kind of just helping tidy up spreadsheets and things like that. And they have gone through a lot of camera trap data for us. So we had a lot of camera trap data from 2019. I mean, 2020 was a write-off. We didn't have any camera trap data from that for obvious reasons. But we had so much data from 2019. So it's been really nice to get them going through all of that for us. And they have just started on 2021, which is just kind of ongoing now. So yeah, they have been really, really great going through all of that data for us. Okay. And then talks and workshops. So again, as I was saying, it's been very, very difficult to get that up and running because social restrictions were in place. We weren't able to go out to schools. We weren't able to have people come to the safari. And even doing stuff online has been really, really difficult. You know, we've had a couple of kind of Zoom calls, but I think we're all zoomed out, and kind of getting that advertising out there was quite difficult as well. But even so, we've been able to do 35 talks and workshops. We've had one event and we have engaged 2,892 people in that time, which is really great. So this is a photograph of me dressed as a red squirrel at our first event. So that was for Red Squirrel Awareness Week, which was really great. And this is just a little bit of data from Red Squirrel Awareness Week. So we had our kind of traditional touch table where we'd got lots of artifacts and we're talking about various different things to do with red squirrel conservation. But then we also had a craft table as well, so the kids could come and make a red squirrel mask. So again, that's another picture of me helping this little girl colouring her mask, because she didn't want to do it. She wanted the squirrel to colour in her mask for her. And then we have been collecting some engagement data on all of the stuff we've been doing as well. So you can see here that our dwell time and engagement level had a positive correlation. So that just means that the longer the people stayed at the touch table and were engaging with us, the higher level of engagement they were getting. And I think what helped with this event in particular is because we are funded by the National Lottery, we're able to offer certain perks to National Lottery players. So we had 500 free tickets that we offered out throughout the week to National Lottery players. So that meant if you had a National Lottery ticket, you could come to the safari for free for that day, and all 500 of them went. So that was really nice. And it was really good because I was chatting to some people who said that they saw that offer for National Lottery players to come to the safari for free, and they live sort of 5-10 minutes away from the safari, but because of economic reasons, they've not been able to come to the safari before. So it was really nice that they were able to come to the safari for the first time, and they said they loved it. They had a really, really great time. So that was just really nice to see that we are reaching those communities that we wanted to for this project. And then our workshops. So these are the workshops that we offer. So I have tried to do at least one workshop for each age group. And then we do also offer bespoke workshops as well. So our bespoke workshops still have to be UK squirrel related, but often we will get teachers saying, oh, well, our theme is autumn. So can you come and do a workshop themed around that? And we can kind of cater our workshops to fit in with their topics a little bit more. Now, our food and habitat workshop has been the most popular one that I've done. And we haven't done any surveying methods workshops yet, but I have got one booked in for January. So I'm very excited about doing that one. And then we also have some free downloadable activity packs on our website for, I think, for woodland animals, food and habitat, and for the red and grey workshop. So you can go online and download those activity packs for free. Okay, and we also had our training. So this was a real success in our opinion, because this is Ellie. She is fantastic. She really worked hard when she was with us. But before she came to Reclaiming Reds, she was applying to different jobs and kind of wasn't really getting anywhere. And she also felt, for her own personal reasons, that she couldn't be applying for actual jobs, that she had to just be applying for traineeships or internships. Whereas when she started working for us and gaining all of these skills, her applications that she was doing to various different jobs, she noticed that she was doing so much better just because of the skills she was learning with us. And you can see from her her little quote here that just by being a trainee at Reclaiming Reds and gaining those skills, it helped her secure a conservation job. So she's now working in North Yorkshire. She's doing some amazing things. She messages messages us regularly, letting us know what she's doing, and she's doing very well. So our traineeship is 6 months and it is paid, which is great. And it helps out with both the control and the community side of the project. So we will be offering another traineeship next year. So we aim to have them in place by about March time. So just to kind of wrap up, I've gone through kind of the negatives of what happened, the successes, but also there has been some positives of the pandemic. So the first positive that I've highlighted is very selfish of me because it's all to do with my work. But I had so much time to prep. So being in place from kind of September, I had about 6 months before I was in a place where I had to be delivering all of my community stuff, just because, you know, the schools were closed, the safari was closed, we had lockdowns and social restrictions in place. So, you know, having that time, we often don't get that time. And as conservation educators, we're constantly on the go. We've got things that, you know, we're trying to plan and deliver at the same time. So having 6 months where I could just sit down and plan all of the workshops, plan the volunteer program how I wanted it to be, and get all of those resources ready to go, so that finally, when those restrictions were lifted, I could just kind of hit the ground running. That was really nice to be able to do. And then another positive was, so I mentioned kind of the digital negatives, but digital delights that we had as well. So as we are all aware, we were forced to understand how to use technology for engagement, something that I hadn't really done before in any of my previous roles. So we were kind of, you know, thrown in at the deep end, but I felt like in a good way. So I've learned so much in the past 15 months of how to deliver online engagement. Introduced me to new platforms as well. So at the safari, we use a program called StreamYard, which I'd never heard of before. So learning all of those new skills was really beneficial. And also just kind of to give credit to the BIAZA community, setting up a project and like setting up a community-based project is difficult enough, and you can feel like you're very isolated and on your own. But I didn't feel that way at all, because although I was in a different position to everybody else setting stuff up, everyone else was trying to do brand new things and setting up their own online engagement. So people were sharing resources. We had so many Zoom calls about, you know, different ways of engaging and different things we could do. So having that support from the BIAZA community was really, really nice. So thank you to everyone. You have definitely helped us with this project. So finally, just a little bit about where we're going. So moving forward, our funding runs out in September 2022. So we are currently exploring more funding options because, as I'm sure you can imagine, we were not able to bring red squirrels back in 2 years. That is just not feasible in the slightest. It's more kind of a 10, 15-year project. And so hopefully we'll get more funding so that we can continue. And just a little bit of a plug, we are always looking for more volunteers. So if you would like to sign up to our volunteer program, then, you know, let me know. Or if you know anybody that would like to sign up to it, that wants to get some more experience in research or admin or community-based things, then do let us know, and you can go onto our website and find out more information.